He spoke Arabic, not broken Arabic, not the careful foreign Arabic of a visitor struggling with another people's tongue. He spoke Arabic the way the Quran speaks Arabic, with rhythm, with gravity, with an authority that did not merely reach my ears, but descended into my chest and closed its hand around my heart. And when I looked at his face, when I understood who was standing before me, my body gave up its strength. I did not kneel because I was commanded to. I knelt because my legs refused to carry the weight of what my eyes were seeing. My name is Ibrahim Traoré. I am a Muslim. I have been a Muslim since the day I was born. I was raised in the prayers of my father, shaped by the faith of my mother, taught to honor all the prophets, including Isa, the one Christians call Jesus. I believed in him as a messenger. I respected him as a servant of God. I never expected him to visit me. I never expected him to speak to me, and I certainly never expected what he would say. What happened on the night of March 3rd, 2024, did not merely disturb my beliefs, it shattered my assumptions about faith, about leadership, and about what God may be doing in Africa in this generation. For months I debated whether to speak of it at all. A president is expected to be rational. A soldier is expected to be unshaken. A Muslim leader is expected to remain within carefully guarded theological borders. But he told me to speak, and I have learned, painfully and clearly, that when heaven gives an instruction, silence is not humility, it is disobedience. So I will tell you what happened. In the weeks before that night, Burkina Faso was bleeding. The attacks had intensified. 3 villages in the north were struck in a single week. The numbers rose each morning like a dark tide. Not only soldiers, but women, children, elders. People whose only crime was to exist on land that violence had decided to claim. Sleep abandoned me. 2 hours at a time, sometimes 3. Never enough to rest the body, never enough to silence the mind. Each morning began with security briefings that sounded less like reports and more like funeral announcements. Each evening ended with decisions that might save some lives, but never all. There is a weight to leadership that cannot be explained to those who have never carried it. It is not the meetings, it is not the uniforms, it is not the ceremonies or the titles. It is the faces. The face of the mother whose son did not return from patrol. The face of the child who asks why her school is now ashes. The face of the old man who trusted you and is beginning to wonder if that trust was foolish. Those faces followed me into my sleep. They waited for me when I woke. On the night of March 3rd, I had just come from a 4-hour meeting about a failed military operation. We had lost soldiers. We had failed to protect a village. Around the table, my commanders argued about responsibility, who miscalculated, who delayed, who disobeyed an order. I said nothing. I stood, left the room, and walked alone to my private quarters inside the presidential residence. My security detail asked if I needed anything. I need to be alone, I told them. I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing my uniform. The weight of the fabric felt heavier than armor. I did not perform the formal prayers. I did not recite the ritual words. I simply spoke into the silence, to God, to the universe, to whatever power still listened to men who were running out of strength. I cannot do this alone anymore. That was all. Then I lay back, and the world disappeared. I found myself standing in a desert. Not the Sahel. I know the Sahel. Its dust is heavy, its heat unforgiving, its winds sharp with sand and memory. This was different. The ground beneath my feet was golden, almost luminous, as if light were rising from within the earth itself instead of falling from the sky. There was no sun, no visible source of fire in the heavens, yet everything was bathed in a warm, amber glow. The air was perfectly still, not hot, not cold, balanced, as if creation itself were holding its breath. I looked down at my hands. They were my hands, the same calluses carved by years of training, the same small scar on my left thumb from childhood. I was not smoke. I was not shadow. I was present, solid, awake, unmistakably real. Then I heard a voice. "My Ibrahim, do not be afraid." It was Arabic, pure, flawless, alive. The words did not travel through the air, they moved through me. They entered my chest like thunder wrapped in silk, gentle in tone, absolute in authority. I turned. A man was walking toward me across the sand. His steps left no footprints. His robe was white, not the white of woven cloth, but the white of light shaped into form. His face was not European. He was Middle Eastern. Olive skin marked gently by sun and wind, dark hair, a beard, eyes the color of the earth after rain, brown, deep, immeasurable. He looked like a man who could have walked the streets of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. He looked like a man who could walk the streets of Ouagadougou today. When he stopped before me, my voice failed. My body knew what my mind was still struggling to understand. He smiled, and something locked inside my chest broke open. "Do you know me?" he asked, in perfect Arabic. My knees folded. The sand was warm, soft, forgiving beneath them. "You are Isa," I whispered. "Jesus." He nodded. "I am called by many names: Isa, Yeshua, Jesus, the Word, the Son of Mary, the Messiah." He took my hand and lifted me to my feet. His grip was firm, human, real. "But tonight," he said, "I have not come to argue over names or titles. I have come because you cried out. And when my children cry out, whatever name they use, I hear them." My heart was beating like a drum against my ribs. Questions stormed inside me. I was a Muslim. He was a prophet, not God. And yet the authority that surrounded him did not feel borrowed. It felt original. "Why?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why speak to me in Arabic?" He smiled again. "Because Arabic is one of the languages of heaven. Because it is the language your heart thinks in. Because I do not belong to one people, one nation, or one religion." Then his eyes grew solemn. "And because what I am about to tell you is not Western. It is not foreign. It is not imposed. It existed before Europe, before America, before the borders men carved into the earth. It is truth." He turned and began to walk, and I walked beside him. We walked in silence for a time. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, glowing like a sea made of quiet fire. My heart was still racing, my thoughts colliding, faith with fear, doctrine with what my eyes were witnessing. "You asked for help," he said at last. "You said you could no longer carry this alone." I swallowed. "Yes." "You were right," he replied gently. "You cannot." I stopped walking. "Then tell me what to do," I said. "If you truly hear us, if God truly hears us, then tell me what is required of me." He turned to face me fully. "I will give you 3 truths tonight," he said. "Not commands, not laws, truths." His voice was calm, but the air itself seemed to listen. "What you do with them will determine not only your future," he continued, "but the future of millions." He raised his hand, and the desert dissolved. The world unfolded before my eyes. We were standing on a great height, looking down, not at a map, but at reality itself. Africa. The entire continent lay beneath us, vast and breathing. I saw the Sahara stretching like a golden ocean, the deep green pulse of the Congo basin, the highlands of Ethiopia, the long coasts touching endless water, the plains where animals still remembered how to run free. And then I saw something else. Darkness. Not night, but shadows thick like smoke, heavy like oil. They moved. They gathered around cities. They coiled around governments. They slipped into villages. They crawled along roads and rivers like veins of sickness. My chest tightened. "What is that?" I asked. His answer was quiet. "That is what grows when leaders forget why they were given power." He looked at me. "When power becomes an end instead of a tool, when wealth becomes a god, when fear becomes a strategy, when authority forgets service." Then he spoke again, slowly, clearly, so that every word carved itself into me. "Here is the first truth, Ibrahim." His voice deepened. Power without service is a curse. The shadows below trembled. Every leader who forgets this becomes a monster, he said, even those who began with clean hands. He pointed toward the darkness. They told themselves they deserved comfort. They told themselves they needed protection. They told themselves the rules were for others. Then he turned to me, and his eyes were not cruel. They were honest. You are in danger of becoming one of them. No, I said instantly. I would never— Not completely, he interrupted softly. Not yet. But the seeds are there. He named them. Your exhaustion, your impatience, your growing suspicion, the voices that tell you mercy is weakness, that crushing enemies is strength, that fear is wisdom. I had no defense. What must I do? I asked. He placed his hand over his heart. Every morning, before you speak to any man, before you make any decision, ask yourself one question. Am I about to serve my people, or am I about to serve my power? He lowered his hand. If you cannot answer truthfully, do not act. The shadows below us stirred, then he raised his hand again, and the world changed. The darkness over Africa began to withdraw, not suddenly, not violently. It retreated the way night retreats before dawn, slowly, unwillingly, as light pressed forward from many distant points. Across the continent, small flames appeared, villages, cities, places I recognized and many I did not. They glowed softly at first, then brighter, spreading outward like living constellations across the land. This, he said, is what happens when leaders remember truth. I turned to him. How do I unite my people? I asked. My nation is Muslim and Christian and more. Every path to unity seems to demand that someone surrender who they are. He shook his head. Unity does not come from religion, he said. It comes from truth. He gestured toward the lights below. Those places are not united because they pray the same way. They are united because their leaders stopped using faith as a weapon. He continued. They did not demand conversion. They demanded honesty. They did not build unity by doctrine. They built it by dignity. I hesitated. But I am Muslim, I said. How do I honor my faith without betraying it? He answered without hesitation. By understanding what faith truly is. He knelt and pressed his hand into the glowing sand. Faith is not a wall, he said. It is a well. He looked up at me. You do not protect a well by building walls around it. You protect it by drawing water from it and sharing it. He stood. The water is truth. The well is your tradition. Share the water. Do not fight over who owns the well. The lights below us grew stronger. I felt something loosen inside me, a knot I had carried for years without knowing its name. Then he raised his hand again, and the vision widened. Beyond Africa, beyond horizon, beyond what I believed the world to be. The world unfolded, not as a globe, as a living body. I saw Africa still beneath us, vast, wounded, luminous with fragile light. But now I also saw the oceans, the continents, the long roads of history carved across the skin of humanity. Lines appeared, invisible at first, then bright. They stretched from West Africa to the Caribbean, from the coasts to the Americas, from villages to cities whose names my ancestors never knew. Lines of chains, lines of blood, lines of ships, lines of separation, and also lines of memory, lines of survival, lines of return. He spoke again. Africa is not a promise to Africa alone. It is a promise to the world. The children who were taken did not stop being African. The cultures that were broken were not erased. The purpose planted in this land was delayed, not destroyed. He pointed to the lines touching distant shores. The systems that exploited this continent stole its wealth, but not its calling. Then he looked at me. Your role is not only to lead Burkina Faso. It is to model something the world has forgotten how to be. My throat tightened. If you can show that a nation can be governed by service instead of power, by truth instead of division, by purpose instead of greed, then you will give hope not only to Africans, but to every people who have been told they are small, disposable, forgotten. Silence gathered between us. Then he said what I feared. But this will cost you. He named the cost without mercy. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you alliances that depend on corruption. It will cost you protection from those who profit from chaos. He met my eyes. It may cost you your life. My breath caught. Are you asking me to become a martyr? I asked. He answered quietly. I am asking you to become a leader. True leaders understand that their lives do not belong to themselves. They belong to their people. Whether you live or die is secondary. Whether you are faithful is everything. He placed his hand on my shoulder. It was heavy, steady, final. Remember these three truths, Ibrahim. Power without service is a curse. Unity comes from truth, not uniformity. And Africa's promise is for the whole world. Then he stepped back. Now wake up, he said. There is work to do. I woke as if pulled upward from deep water. My lungs burned. My heart struck my ribs like a fist from the inside. My uniform was soaked through with sweat, clinging to my skin as if I had run for miles. The clock beside my bed read 4:17 a.m. For a long moment I did not move. The room was dark, silent, ordinary, and yet everything had changed. I rose, crossed the room and took a notebook from my desk. My hands trembled as I wrote, not in sentences, not in order, but in fragments, in fire, in urgency. The desert, the light, the voice, the three truths. I wrote until my fingers ached, until the sun began to lift the edge of the night. And then doubt arrived, quiet, reasonable, deadly. I am a soldier, I told myself, a man trained to measure evidence, a president, not a mystic. Stress can build dreams, exhaustion can forge illusions, the mind can deceive even the disciplined. By morning, I had decided I would tell no one. At 11:43 a.m., my assistant entered my office. There is an old imam at the gate, he said, from a village more than 300 kilometers away. He arrived without notice. He refuses to leave. I frowned. This is not protocol. He says he carries a message for you alone. Something cold moved through me. Against every rule, I agreed to see him. They brought him in slowly. He was very old, perhaps 80. His beard was white as ash, his robe simple. His hands shook as if time itself lived inside them. He looked at me for a long moment, not at my uniform, not at my rank, at my face. Then he spoke. Last night I dreamed. The room seemed to tilt. In the dream, he continued, I saw the prophet Isa, Jesus, peace be upon him. My breath stopped. He stood in a desert of golden sand, the old man said. He spoke in Arabic. He told me to come to you. My pen fell from my hand. He said you would have received three truths. My vision blurred. He told me to repeat them to you so you would not doubt. I could barely speak. What are they? The imam closed his eyes. Power without service is a curse. True unity comes from truth, not religion. And Africa's promise is for the whole world. The room disappeared. I wept. Not the controlled tears of a politician, not the silent grief of a soldier. I wept like a child whose strength has finally run out. The old man stepped forward and held me, like a father. Allah has chosen you for something, he whispered. Or perhaps I should say, God has chosen you. Whatever name we use, the message is the same. He released me and looked into my eyes. Now do what you were told. The first test came within a week. My security council gathered in the operations room, their faces hard, their voices sharp with urgency. Maps covered the walls. Red marks bled across the northern regions. My chief of intelligence spoke first. "We have identified several zones with suspected terrorist sympathizers," he said. "We propose a mass operation, immediate arrests, interrogation afterward." He slid a document across the table. More than 300 names. Farmers, teachers, young men, old men, some guilty, many unknown, some certainly innocent. "It is necessary," another advisor added. "We cannot afford hesitation. Fear is spreading. We must show strength." Strength. The word echoed inside me like a hollow drum. I remembered the desert. I remembered the shadows crawling across Africa. Power without service is a curse. I looked at the paper, then at the men who trusted me to approve it, then at the invisible faces behind the numbers, mothers, children, families who would wake to soldiers at their doors. "No," I said. The room stiffened. "With respect, Mr. President," my intelligence chief began. "No," I repeated. "We will not arrest people without evidence. We will not punish the innocent to frighten the guilty." Silence fell like a held breath. "If we do this," I continued, "we become the very terror we claim to fight." Some of them exchanged glances. I could read their thoughts. He is tired. He is weak. He is becoming sentimental. "Find another way," I said, "one that protects our people without destroying them." The meeting ended without agreement, but I did not withdraw my decision. In the weeks that followed, we built something slower, harder. We worked with village elders, with teachers, with imams and pastors, with mothers who knew which sons had disappeared into the night. We gathered intelligence carefully, patiently, lawfully. It cost time, it cost resources, it cost political comfort, but it saved lives. And for the first time in months, I slept one full night without seeing blood in my dreams. The second test came 2 months later. A delegation arrived from a powerful Western nation. Their suits were perfect, their words were polished, their smiles practiced. They spoke of friendship, of stability, of shared interests. They offered military equipment, economic support, international protection. It was everything a struggling nation is taught to desire. Then came the condition. Alignment. A careful word. It meant obedience dressed as cooperation. It meant approval before action. It meant policy written in another capital. They did not threaten. They did not need to. Power rarely raises its voice. It simply assumes. That night, alone in my office, I stood before the window and looked at the city. I remembered the vision. The lines crossing oceans. The centuries of extraction. The quiet theft of dignity. Africa's promise is for the whole world. But a promise cannot be fulfilled by a people who are still owned. The next morning, I gave them my answer. "We welcome cooperation," I said, "but not submission." They did not hide their surprise. "We seek partners," I continued, "not guardians." Their smiles faded. They warned of consequences. Aid would be reduced, support would weaken, doors would close. I nodded, then let them close. They left dissatisfied. And yes, the consequences came. Funds were frozen, agreements dissolved, invitations disappeared. For a time, the pressure was heavy. But something unexpected happened. Other nations came, not with commands, with respect. Countries that had also learned the cost of kneeling. We built new relationships, slower, cleaner, equal. And then messages began to arrive from other African leaders. Quiet at first, then openly. How did you refuse and survive? How did you stand and not fall? I told them the truth. You fall only when you forget why you were standing. The third test was the hardest, not because it threatened my power, but because it threatened the soul of my country. A dispute over land erupted in the western region, a simple disagreement, old as farming itself. But it did not remain simple. Words became accusations, accusations became anger, anger became stones and fire. Muslims on one side, Christians on the other. 3 people were killed in 2 days. If nothing changed, many more would follow. My advisors urged distance. Send mediators, deploy troops, let local leaders handle it. But I remembered the second truth. Unity comes from truth, not religion. So I went myself. No convoy of intimidation, no speech prepared by committee, only my presence. They gathered the elders, the imams, the pastors, the community heads, and placed us in one room, not separated, together. The air was heavy with suspicion. I did not begin as president. I began as a man. "You are lying to yourselves," I said. The room stiffened. "You say the other side is your enemy. That is not true. The enemy is the lie you have accepted." They stared. The lie that this land cannot be shared. The lie that your faith demands dominance. The lie that God profits from the blood of neighbors. Silence. Then I opened the Quran. I spoke of justice, of mercy, of the sanctity of innocent life. Then I spoke of Jesus, of loving one's enemy, of blessing those who curse you, of overcoming evil with good. And then, without planning to, I told them. I was visited in a dream by the prophet Isa. He spoke to me in Arabic. He told me that true unity comes from truth, not from forcing people to become the same. No one laughed. No one interrupted. An old Christian elder stood slowly. "If Allah can send Isa to speak to a Muslim president," he said, "then perhaps he can teach us to speak to each other." A Muslim leader nodded. A pastor wept openly. That night, they signed an agreement. Not perfect, not eternal, but real. And it held. I have told you this story not to crown myself with mystery. I am not a prophet. I am not a saint. I am not above doubt or weakness. I am a man, often tired, often uncertain, often afraid of making the wrong choice when the cost of error is measured in human lives. But I was given a message, and I was told to carry it. So I will repeat it, not as revelation, but as responsibility. Power without service is a curse. This is true for presidents and generals. It is true for parents and teachers, for employers and officers, for anyone who holds another person's future in their hands. If you use power to protect yourself, it will rot your soul. If you use it to protect others, it becomes something sacred. True unity comes from truth, not from religion. This does not mean all religions are identical. It means all honest faith points beyond itself, toward justice, mercy, humility, and restraint. We do not honor God by hating in His name. We honor Him by becoming recognizable to Him. Africa's promise is for the whole world. My continent has been wounded, exploited, mocked, measured only by what others could take from it. But purpose is not erased by suffering. Africa still carries something the world is starving for, the memory that leadership can serve, that diversity can coexist without domination, that the children of victims can become the healers of history. I do not know how long I will live. I do not know whether I will see this vision fulfilled, but I know this. On the night of March 3rd, 2024, Jesus spoke to me in Arabic, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to live as if His words were true. To my African brothers and sisters, we are not defined by what was done to us. We are defined by what we choose to become. To my Muslim brothers and sisters, I have not left Islam. I have walked deeper into it, to the place where surrender to God matters more than arguments about His name. To my Christian brothers and sisters, your prophet came to me, and he did not come to divide us. He came to remind us that God's family is larger than our labels. And to anyone listening who feels alone, who carries responsibility in silence, who wonders whether their prayers fall into empty space, you are heard. Heaven is not distant. It is quiet. And sometimes, if you are willing to become still enough, you may hear a voice speaking your own language, calling you by name, telling you not to be afraid. Because the one who holds the universe also holds you, and He is closer than you think.